Here's Ben Shapiro's attempt to give evidence for a God.
The best evidence for God, as I have said on the show before, and as I say in debate with Sam Harris, which I think is going to, he'll be putting that out pretty soon if he hasn't already. The basic idea is that if you believe in free will,
I don't.
if you believe in human reason, if you believe in our capacity to understand the universe.
I actually don't know that we have the capacity to understand the universe. Most things look like they are pretty simple, but there are many things we don't understand, and I don't know whether we ever will. Shit, I don't even know that the things that seem like they've been figured out really have been. I think the best we can say is that there seem to be regularities that so far have appeared to be pretty consistent. That's a pretty weak basis for the conclusion that the universe as a whole is rational or intelligible.
If you believe in a predictable universe with laws that govern it.
I don't. Physical laws don't govern anything. As Bertrand Russell pointed out, the laws of physics are not like the laws of a government. They are not behests. They are not orders. They don't force the universe or anything in it to behave a certain way. They are merely descriptions of apparent consistencies.
If you believe we do not live in a chaotic universe,
Ben is another apologist who thinks that without some disembodied mind forcing order upon things, the default state of reality must be chaos. This is a baseless assumption. I see no reason to assume that order cannot exist on its own. Even if the universe is intelligible, it does not follow from this that the universe is governed by an intelligence. Why would it not be at least as reasonable to infer that a purely material universe would produce an intelligence that can understand it? Why must it be the other way around? Why would it need to be the case that an immaterial intelligence, whatever that even means, had to create an intelligible material universe? This seems to be putting the cart before the horse.
Without meaning. If you believe that you can derive ought from is, then you need to believe in a divine creator.
I definitely don't believe that. You can't get an ought from an is, even if there is a divine creator. Even if something created us for some purpose, it is a complete non sequitur to say that we therefore ought to try to live up to that purpose. Given that most of these ifs don't apply to me and probably don't apply to a lot of other atheists, I don't really see how Ben expects his book to be very convincing. You can't build a very strong argument on top of such intensely dubious premises.
Okay, and that's not an argument for the Bible, but that is an argument for God, right? That's the Aristotelian argument for God, is that there is a rationale behind everything. If you believe there's a rationale behind everything, then you believe in God.
I don't believe that there's a rationale behind everything, so I guess I don't believe in a God.
And if you believe, as Aquinas did, that rationale is purely actual, right? Here's sort of the argument that Aristotle makes. The argument that Aristotle makes for the unmoved mover is not that everything has a cause and therefore there's God, because then leftists and atheists just say, well, does God have a cause also? Right? The idea is that everything that you see in front of you at one point was another thing that was actualized. Right? That there's two that something has potential and there's the potential and the actual. Right? Like this piece of paper right here, this has the potential to be ash, but it requires fire in order to make it ash. Now, fire itself also had a potential at one point, right? It was a match and it was a piece of wood or it was a rough surface. So it had the potential to be fire, but it was not fire. So in order for something to become actual, in order for potential to be actualized, it has to be acted upon by something that is either fully actual or something that is a combination of the actual with its own potential.
Yeah, this is one of the many reasons why physicists don't take Aristotelian physics seriously anymore. The idea that actualities that were preceded by potentialities are contingent seems to me to be predicated on the A theory of time, which makes no discernible sense in light of relativity. Rather, the relativity of simultaneity seems to show that all actualities equally occupy existence. They are all equally real rather than being contingent. I did a video explaining this in greater detail, to which I'll put a link in the description.
The idea here would be that there is something that lies behind everything that is purely actual, right? It is actuality itself. It is the most actual thing. And this thing cannot be material, because if it were material, then it would have potential for change.
Well, then it also can't be conscious. It can't be a mind, because a conscious mind not only has the potential for change, it is in a constant state of flux. If your mind ceases to change, if it ceases moving from thought to thought, then in what sense could you even be said to be conscious? Consciousness is an event. It's a process. A static consciousness is a contradiction in terms. If you were to stop carrying out the changes inherent in the actions of thinking, perceiving, feeling, judging, and all the other events that make up consciousness, you would no longer be conscious. If a God cannot change, it cannot be a conscious entity.
Right? It doesn't have potential for change, therefore it is purely actual. And that pure actuality also is all-knowing, because anything that exists has to come from a place of capacity for being actualized. And so it's the unactualized actualizer is the way that God would be put. If you want to read a good book about proofs of God, then Edward Feser is a book I've recommended on the show. He has 5 proofs for the existence of God, quite a good book, and I recommend you check it out. Good Christmas read, actually. I would recommend that you check that out.
People often ask me to debunk Ed Feser, but his central argument seems to be this argument from obsolete, already disproven Aristotelian physics. So I technically already have.
Again, I think what it comes down to, in the end, is you either believe there's a purpose and meaning in human life or you don't.
I don't. And unless you can come up with a convincing argument that there is, your argument for a god will forever be inadequate.